Planters at all costs. We are under the attack of an orbiting probe.
Notify all stations. Starfleet emergency. Red alert.
Another red alert. I'm Rex Reed.
And I'm Bill Harris, and you are at the movies.
Good news for Trekkies and civilians, too. We have a lot of clips today of the brand new Star Trek IV and exclusive interviews, too, with William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy.
And it all starts right now with our look at Star Trek IV. Actually, this is the film series that's turned the tables on sequels. It's gotten better. And Star Trek IV, subtitled The Voyage Home, is the proof. We can report they're all back. Kirk, Spock, Bones, Scotty, and the rest of the crew of the Starship Enterprise. But this time without their starship, don't forget, lost in the last movie, in case you weren't watching. America was watching back in 1966, though, when Star Trek first took to the television airwaves. That first season, they didn't even finish in the top 50 shows. But now, 2 decades later, they are going strong. William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy once again star, this time as time travel takes them from their interplanetary patrols in the 23rd century back to Earth and back to the year 1986. And as everyone knows, travel, time or otherwise, can be tough on everyone.
Warp speed, Mr. Sulu.
Warp 2. Warp 3.
Steady as she goes.
Warp 4. Warp 5. Warp 6. Warp 7. Warp 8. There. Heat shields at maximum. Warp 9. 9.2. 9.3. We need breakaway speed. 9.5. 9.6. 9.7. 9.8.
Around the sun and back to Earth, they've come to save the world of the future. But they have to adapt. A 23rd century spaceman is just no match for a 20th century cab driver.
Watch where you're going, you dumbass! Well, I'll double dumbass on you!
It's a miracle these people ever got out of the 20th century.
One of the crew's assignments is to replenish their ship's power supply. So they innocently try to track down a little nuclear energy.
Excuse us.
Oh, excuse me. We are looking for nuclear weapons. Can you tell me where the naval base is in Alameda? We're looking for Hello, we are looking for the nuclear vessels in Alameda. Could you tell me where...
Can you help us?
Please, we're looking for the naval base in Alameda. Could you tell me where the nuclear vessels are?
Ooh, I don't know if I know the answer to that. I think it's across the bay, in Alameda.
That's what I said, Alameda. I know that.
But where is Alameda?
Well, you turn left at Fisherman's Wharf. Meantime, our stars are busy searching for whales, whose mysterious communications could hold the key to 23rd century survival.
I think we'll find what we're looking for at the Station Institute in Sausalito. A pair of humpback whales named George and Gracie.
How do you know this?
Simple logic.
What does it mean, exact change?
What we have here is a failure to communicate, at least at times. But as you've seen, Star Trek IV relies heavily on humor and on everyday American life, and on bringing the Star Trek family down to Earth in more ways than one. Time travel is nothing new for them. An early episode of the TV series went back to New York in the 1930s with Joan Collins, one of the world's great Klingons, as a guest star. Personally, I missed that one.
Don't go away. There's more from Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home, and Bill's visit with the real James Kirk and Mr. Spock.
Can we make breakaway speed?
Oh, that's all I can give you.
Book 8. Book 9. Now.
Are you still with us? Okay, here's a brief recap of Star Trek IV up to now. The planet Earth is threatened with destruction by an alien force that communicates in a language that's understood only by whales. The trouble is, there aren't any more whales. They're extinct in the 23rd century. So, to save the world and the whales, the Enterprise crew returns to the past to 1986, landing plop in the middle of San Francisco. And the humor is instant, as Californians meet their first E.T. in Mr. Spock, and Spock finds that the powers of 300 years in the future work very well on a San Francisco bus.
The only choice we're given is how many megatons. And I...
You mind stopping that damn noise?
And I say to you. And I hope you're blue, too. We're all bloody wetlands.
Admiral, may I ask you a question?
Spock, don't call me Admiral. You used to call me Jim. Don't you remember Jim? What's your question?
Your use of language has altered since our arrival. It is currently laced with, shall I say, more colorful metaphors. Double dumbass on you, and so forth.
You mean the profanity?
Yes.
That's simply the way they talk here. Nobody pays any attention to you unless you swear every other word. You'll find it in all the literature of the period.
For example?
Well, the collected works of Jacqueline Suzanne. The novels of Harold Robbins.
Ah, the giants.
To save those humpback whales, Admiral Kirk finds an unexpected ally in a spunky but curious marine biologist played by lovely Catherine Hicks.
We may be able to help you in ways that, frankly, you couldn't possibly imagine.
Or believe, I'll bet.
Very likely. You're not exactly catching us at our best.
That much is certain.
I have a hunch that we'd all be a lot happier discussing this over dinner. What do you say?
You guys like Italian?
No.
Yes.
Yes.
No.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes. I love Italian. And so do you.
Yes.
I like Italian, and I like this movie. Star Trek IV is not only the latest in a film series that's brought in more than $300 million, I think it's the best. Now, diehard fans may miss some of those gigantic explosions and the interplanetary battles. They're there, but not with the same emphasis from previous pictures. This year, Star Trek offers humor and humanity, and big co-stars, from two large humpback whales to Catherine Hicks and Jane Wyatt. It is a real crowd pleaser. Directed by Leonard Nimoy, time travel is more than just a plot gimmick here. It opens up new, less alien worlds to explore. And it's a pleasure to see it all done so well. Star Trek IV is like a welcome holiday card from old friends. You don't see them quite as often as you used to, but it's great to know they're still there and they're doing fine.
You know, I'm not a Trekkie. I have to admit that, at the risk of inviting a lot of hate mail. I don't understand these Star Trek movies. I've never really liked them before, and I'm sick of the old series reruns with all these people with terrible toupees and all these saran-wrap control panels and all these cardboard space engines. But I like this movie. It's so human. It has more wit, more imagination, and it really does have more energy than all of the three previous major motion pictures put together, I think.
And it's more humane. I'm glad you liked it. I kept thinking, you know, we'd show it to Rex. It's like, oh, we'll feed it to Mikey. He does. I'm glad you liked it. And Star Trek V, they haven't yet committed, but when we talked to William Shatner, he said he'll be directing it.
But I love the fact that they land, you know, in this space vessel, and he says, everyone remember where we parked. I mean, there's a lot of humor. I think all of those old Star Trek movies are also funny, but they're not intentionally funny. This one is supposed to be, and it's better than any of the others.
And it's warm and a nice
sure entertained me.
It is that. It's warm. It's a nice tip of the hat to ecology. I liked it. We've talked about the movie Star Trek 4, so next we'll talk to the men who've kept that tradition running for 20 years. Coming up, Admiral Kirk and Mr. Spock.
And the rest of you break up. You look like a cadet review.
I'm dying to know what Leonard Nimoy looks like without those pointed ears. Are we going to find out now?
We sure are. In fact, we'll see Spock without the ears and Shatner without the uniform. And it starts with a question we might have asked back in 1966. When you signed that first Star Trek contract, and I said, 20 years from now, you'll be doing another, what would you have told that reporter?
Well, obviously, it would have been nuts because series go for a while and they die, and that's the end of them. But not this one. It survived, and if you were to ask me, which I would think you would, what the reasons are for that, I have no idea. I don't think anybody has.
Warp speed, Mr. Sulu.
Warp 2. Warp 3.
Steady as she goes. We know it has something to do with the cast and with the stories and the science fiction and the action adventure and the pseudo-philosophy and the... But what the formula is, we just don't know.
Get out of there! Get out!
What kind of response did we get from the faithful when the Enterprise was demolished in the last film?
Well, I think that, well, I know that there were some people who were quite distressed about it, even angry. On the other hand, I think for the most part, people accepted it as a dramatic event. It's a dramatic happening. There are a lot of questions around today about whether or not the Enterprise comes back in Star Trek 4, and the answer is see the picture and enjoy yourself. I think that the loss of the Enterprise was taken in stride because even prior to that, we'd lost Spock. In Star Trek 2, Spock died. So it becomes a question of whether you're more interested in the characters or the ship. Yeah. The toughest scene in directing Star Trek 4 would probably be the storm sequence, where we're out there in the rainstorm and away from the cameras, quite a distance from the camera equipment and so forth.
We're in the water! Blow the hatch!
Right place, Spock. Now all we have to do is get the whales out of here before we sink. Bend the ship!
Difficult for me to be able to tell whether everything that's going on around me is looking the way I would want it to look if I were not in the scene. That's physically tough. I had some good eyes looking for me. By the time we got to that scene, I knew who I could count on in terms of asking the key questions and getting the answers about whether or not it looked the way it should.
How big a crapshoot, how big a chance did you take in bringing the action down from the stratosphere right down to terra firma?
Well, from your initial enthusiasm, not too much of a crapshoot. There is a real question about dramatic development in going back in time. That's a tough one to bring off and make the audience believe it and go with it. And apparently we've done it.
Computer. Hello, computer.
Just use the keyboard.
Keyboard. How quaint.
Transparent aluminum?
That's the ticket, laddie.
What exactly did you have in mind?
Well, a moment alone, please. We give him the formula. We're altering the future.
Why? How do we know he didn't invent the thing?
Can you build the humanity in the script, or did it just happen in this film?
No, I think you have to want it to be there. You have to lay that out as one of the guidelines and say, look, we want this film to be lighter in tone than the previous films were. We want it to be very much about the people, and we want to really get a sense of the dimension of these people and how they work together and that they care about each other.
My God, man. Drilling holes in his head's not the answer. The artery must be repaired. Now put away your butcher knives and let me save this patient before it's too late.
Dealing with medievalism here. Chemotherapy. Fundoscopic examinations. Can you hear me? He's coming around, Jeff. Pavel, talk to me. Name, rank.
Chekhov. Pavel. Rank. Admiral.
The one question I had to ask, there were rumors about Eddie Murphy in Star Trek 4, and sure enough, Nimoy said that they'd talked to him, they planned on it, they were going to find him down on Earth in San Francisco, but in the end, his schedule wouldn't allow it. And I think it's just fine the way it is without any big guest stars.
Sure, I don't think they'd be running into Eddie Murphy on a cable car in San Francisco. This has much more humanity, but what really interests me is how the hard-nosed Trekkies are going to take this picture. I'm not a Trekkie and I liked it, will they? Because sometimes they like more of that pseudo-philosophy that William Shatner was talking about than I do. Well, all of this...